Friday, August 29th, 2025. And of course, a lot's going on in the world. Thai court has dismissed the prime minister over a compromising phone call with a Cambodian strongman. So, Thailand's prime minister has been removed from office over a leaked phone call scandal with the Cambodian strongman. And so, that is something that folks are definitely talking about as they dismiss Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra. So that looks like they were dismissed and everything like that. And then 2 weeks after Trump talks, Russia bombards Kyiv, killing at least 23. And the EU is furious as deadly Russian attack damages its Kyiv office. So Russia pounds Ukraine with missiles and drones and hits the EU mission. And outraged over a Russian strike on Kyiv, European defense leaders are pledging pressure to end the war. And the IDF has found the body of hostage Ilan Weiss, I should say, in Gaza. Israel recovers the body of the hostage and remains of another as Gaza City declared a dangerous combat zone. So Israel resumes daytime operations in Gaza City, signaling buildup to assault. And IDF declares a famine hit Gaza City, a combat zone, ending tactical pauses that allow limited food delivery as that Middle Eastern crisis continues. And Rwanda says 7 deportees arrived from the U.S. in August under an agreement with the government of the United States. So the Rwanda-U.S. migrant deal's first group of deportees has arrived, according to a spokesperson there on yesterday. So looks like some folks have been accepted into Rwanda in that particular deal. And U.S. low-value package tariff exemption ends, raising costs for shippers and consumers. A tariff loophole on cheap imports has closed, and some folks are wondering how that will affect shoppers. So, end of an era, billions of packages of cheap goods shipped to the U.S. are now subject to steep tariffs. So, U.S. shoppers' orders canceled as world shuts down some American-bound shipments. And contract breach or banditry inside the collapse of the Taliban's oil deal with China. And then there's also a Russia-backed head of Donetsk says Moscow must capture canal from Ukraine to solve its water crisis. So Ukraine's Donetsk faces water crisis under Russian occupation. And across occupied Ukraine, Russia has caused a devastating water crisis it cannot fix. Uncle Putin, give us water. Children in occupied Ukraine beg Russia for drinking water, and all along those lines. And that was reported from Le Monde in France. And tensions soar across Indonesia as protests against police erupt in multiple cities. Police protests erupt across Indonesia after a rideshare driver was killed in a demonstration. Protests erupted in Indonesia over the death of a man hit by a police vehicle. So he was apparently hit by a police vehicle in that particular case. And Turkey closes Israel economic trade ties and closes airspace. Turkey cutting economic ties with Israel, closing airspace to Israeli planes. Turkey says it has closed the skies to Israeli flights and definitely cut those trade ties. So we'll see how this plays out as well. And China welcomes Modi as Trump's trade war draws rivals into detente. So India's Modi to meet with Xi and Putin on first China trip in 7 years as U.S. tariffs bite. Xi prepares meeting a security bloc to rival U.S.-led world order. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping are likely to hold a one-on-one meeting on Sunday. So like I said, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi are likely to hold that meeting on Sunday. And fake images of Prime Minister Melania and other women politicians on porn website are sparking outrage in Italy. So Giorgia Melani's disgusted at posting the photos of her and other women on the porn site. So in the Italian Facebook page, where men share intimate images of partners without consent, closed after a police probe. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And UK bars Israeli defense officials from London arms fair over the Gaza war. So UK blocked Israeli government delegation from the arms trade fair. So that is something that is going on in the news as well. And also the wife of jailed South Korean ex-president indicted for corruption, bribery, and other charges as well. So the South Korea former First Lady Kim Keon-hee has been indicted on those charges. And a Gaza City neighborhood is now a wasteland, satellite images show. So it definitely looks like the Israeli war on Gaza has killed over 63,000 Palestinians and starved 322, according to some reports. An Iran-backed Houthi prime minister killed in Israeli airstrike on Yemen's capital. So that is something that folks are talking about as well, as Israeli targets a senior Houthi official in Thursday's airstrike, awaiting outcome. The Army radio is reporting. So it definitely looks like that is still going on as well. And an online age check are proliferating, but so are concerns they curtail some of the things that folks like in the internet. So online age verification rules are popping up everywhere, and looks like this is something that folks are trying to do to make sure that the kids are protected when they're going on sites, whether it's OnlyFans or whether it's some of the other ones as well. And European countries are to notify UN of snapback sanctions on Iran. Germany tells nationals to leave Iran, fearing a retaliation over sanctions. And Russia blames Trump for Iran nuclear crisis, says E3 has turned to diplomacy at the barrel of the gun. So definitely we'll see how this all plays out as well. An Israeli strike kills 6 Syrian troops, Syria says. Israeli troops raid site deep inside Syria, Damascus is reporting. And ranking member Shahan, Senator Ernst, and Representative Wilson gave a statement on their thoughts about what Israel is doing. And the entire UN Security Council, as we reported yesterday, except for the U.S., is saying the Gaza famine is man-made. And that is definitely something that folks are talking about as well. Let me get to some of the U.S. news and see who I've got with me, if anybody, at this particular time and along those lines. And we'll see what we've got happening in terms of the news. Science or Trump, this impossible choice faced by the ousted CDC chief. Trump administration faces rare bipartisan pushback for firing the CDC director. So RFK Jr. sought to fire CDC director Suzanne Menarez over the vaccine policy, and there has been some backlash in that as well. And 2 weeks, 1,000 arrests, how a surge of feds have changed D.C. policing. So has crime in Washington fallen 2 weeks on from Trump's crackdown? That's what some people are wondering. And according to Fox 5 in D.C., violent crime is down 58% in D.C. amid the federal crackdown. And we'll see if these statistics hold true and if other people believe them as well. And from devastation to determination, Hurricane Katrina's legacy in pictures. So today would have been 20 years ago that Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana and all along those lines. So 20 years after Katrina, New Orleans is at a tipping point. So Hurricane Katrina survivors share stories of perseverance 20 years after that deadly storm. And definitely that's what some people are talking about as well. And the White House equates Russian-Ukrainian strikes after Moscow attacks killed 23 in Kyiv. So definitely outrage over Russian strikes on Kyiv. European defense leaders are pledging that they're going to put pressure to end the war. And new trial ordered for 3 Memphis ex-officers in connection with a beating death over there, the beating death of Tyre Nichols. So new trial ordered for the 3 Memphis ex-officers in connection with the death of Tyre Nichols. So that's definitely something when it comes to police protection and all along those lines. Speaking of for police protection, Trump has revoked the Secret Service protection for former Vice President Kamala Harris. So Trump cancels Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail that was extended by an undisclosed Biden order. So it looks like that is something that folks are talking about as well, that they don't have the ability to get there and to actually protect this particular individual. Matter of fact, I think he's supposed to be coming to Durham in October. But Trump has canceled Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail that was extended by an undisclosed Biden order. So definitely, judge will hear Lisa Cook's suit to block her firing from the Fed, and Trump revoked Secret Service detail for Harris that Biden had extended. And Texas House advances anti-abortion bill. Texas House set to vote on a bill allowing Texans to sue over abortion-induced in appeals. So fact versus fiction, how Texas can stop the abortion pill is one of the stories that folks are looking at. And Trump is preparing a major immigration enforcement operation in Chicago. So it looks like he is going to try to do some stuff in Chicago. I represent part of Chicago in Congress, is what one person said, and Trump wants its residents scared and silent. Trump's mayor said, "We do not want federal occupation, as Naval Station Great Lakes reportedly is to stage agents, and feds are to surge manpower to Chicago for immigration reform." And the parents of the children killed in the Annunciation Catholic school shooting speak out. Minneapolis school attacker obsessed with idea of killing children, officials say. And Minneapolis police reveal more about church school shooter's motive. So definitely that's what folks are looking at. They're looking at what we know about the Minnesota school shooting suspect, Robin Westman. And I know some people are thinking that this is bringing up gun control, but also bringing up the state of how we deal with those that are mentally impaired or have mental illness and all along those lines. So that is something that people are talking about in connection to that particular shooting and all in that way. I know Kim, who I talked to yesterday, and she said she might pop in at some point, was wondering how we're doing in terms of dealing with folks' mental situations, because in a lot of cases, the shooters have given signs that there might be prone to doing something drastic or very dangerous and all along those lines. And unfortunately, sometimes those signs, whether it's by students or whether it's by fellow students or whether it's by parents or guidance counselors or others, are sometimes ignored. So that's something that we've got to see what's going on and how people are dealing with that. Two firefighters are battling the Washington State wildfire that have been arrested by the Border Patrol. So the Border Patrol arrests two firefighters battling the Bear Gulch fire in Washington and all along those lines. So definitely, and I'm thinking that maybe they were of Latin background or something like that, but we'll see what's going on in that case. And Venezuela's Maduro, it says no way U.S. can invade as Trump deploys naval forces. Trump's Venezuela gunboat diplomacy, saber rattling, or a prelude to an invasion. So we'll see what goes on in that space as well. And of course, a lot of conversations about the tariffs, whether it's hitting India or it's hitting other places as well. Well, I've got Rick with me. How are you doing today, Rick? How's life?
All right. Okay. So
Cool.
I got a story here, which is the Democratic National Committee had its summer meeting
Uh-huh.
and began it with what's called a land acknowledgement. It was held
Right.
in Minnesota. And whoever was running the meeting got up and said, "We acknowledge that the land that we're holding this on was stolen from Native Americans."
Right.
James Carville, a Democratic strategist, an old cranky man, said, "We got to cut that crap out if you want to win elections." And, I tend to agree that, okay, I mean, we're aware that the land was, that Democrats have to get hard headed and they have to talk to people where they are, which
Yeah.
is, according to an editorial I read in today's LA Times, grocery prices.
Yeah.
Prices will not be going down. And at least this summer meeting was held a year before, next year's election. So,
Yeah.
like, people in at these party meetings, they're nerdy people. They're not slick politicians for the most part. They're mostly behind the scenes, and they're very concerned with, liberal causes. And
Did they mention you said it was in Minneapolis or Minnesota? Did they mention the gun incident at all in this? And was
I,
that going to be one of their campaign issues? Because I do know that gun
I, I,
control.
I think that this happened, this land acknowledgement thing is a couple days old, so it probably happened before the
Gotcha.
shootings. But I mean, with regard to the shootings, what we probably need to see is parents saying, "Yeah, okay, show my dead kid. Show what it looks like to get shot up by an assault rifle." And, if you're going to make that a political issue, then show the kids and not alive.
Mhm. Well, I just saw something that's interesting here in North Carolina. I hadn't heard this story before, but it was in MSNBC and also reported on the CBS. But apparently, a North Carolina election official has been accused of spiking their grandkids' ice cream. So apparently, they were drugging the Dairy Queen blizzards given to their grandchildren and
Why?
everything like that. So I don't know what they were. I don't know whether they were spiking them, whether or why they were spiking them, but that's just crazy that you're going to go take the grandkids out to get ice cream, and
Yeah, but
then
I mean, we're a big,
apparently
we're a,
they resigned after arrest for allegedly putting MDMA cocaine in the kids' ice cream. Maybe the kids were out of control. Maybe they wanted to try
no,
to
well, the
control the kids.
MDMA and cocaine will not make people less out of control.
Right.
That's, I think, isn't MDMA ecstasy, which is a club drug that makes you love everybody, and then you mix that with cocaine. I mean, okay, I mean, but anyway, we're a big country. We've got a bunch of assholes in the country. People are going to do crazy crap.
They are going to do crazy crap. There was some good news. Apparently, the U.S. offered a military funeral honors to Capitol rioter Ashley Babbitt and everything like that. So I guess she was one of those January 6th rioters killed in the Capitol. So several years later, they offered her military funeral honors. So I guess she gets to be honored now that Trump is in.
Yeah. All right. Here's another Trump thing. He's pulled Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection.
Yes.
She's about to go out on a book tour. So
that's why she's coming to Durham. Right. She's coming to Durham in October.
So she's going to have to hire private security because, she's a prominent person who's politically, divisive. And so, yeah, she's obviously, somebody might come at her. And, so Trump's going to Trump, and he's going to be vindictive. I mean, she didn't do much besides run for president against him, but he's going to screw her over.
Well, speaking of screwing over, apparently this is a major story as well. The Trump administration wants to build more roads through the national forests. So it plans to remove protection on 2 million acres of national forest in Oregon. I know you used to live in Colorado and everything. So apparently there's going to be a lot of logging and other things going on, because even the Sam Houston Forest will lose its road and logging prohibition once the feds kill the rules. So it looks like there's going to be a lot of roads possibly being built through the national forest.
Right. Okay. So again, it's just Trump being a dick and playing to his base. The national forests, the national parklands are, I don't know, like 1.5% of all the land in the U.S. It's not like logging companies are hurting for places to do logging, but he's just being a dick.
Sounds like it. Well, Abrego Garcia's lawyers, and this just came out today, are asking the judge for a gag order against Trump officials, and we know that sometimes because they ask for a gag order against both Bondi and Kristi Noem. So is this gag order going to work? Because apparently they don't want them talking about the case, and so they can defend Kilmore Abrego Garcia.
No, it won't work. They'll continue to say what they want if they get, and then maybe a judge will fine them, and so somebody will pay $15,000 or $20,000 for talking.
They're gonna pay all that money for talking and all along those lines. And it looks like there's a historical thing that's going on. A Mississippi museum has acquired the gun linked to, and this was from years ago, the Emmett Till murder. So the gun used in Emmett Till's lynching is on display at a museum 70 years later and everything. And apparently the family has recreated the train ride from Chicago to Mississippi to mark the 70th anniversary of that horrific day and everything like that. But apparently they've got the gun, so you can actually go to Mississippi, I guess, and look at the gun and also see the route that the family took to go from Chicago to Mississippi to mark this anniversary. And there's a lot of anniversaries. It's also the anniversary of Katrina, and some people are wondering hurricane season, if we're ready for another hurricane of that kind of magnitude. Unfortunately,
you're never ready for a hurricane, but it's the 20-year anniversary. So here's the story. The Trump administration is going to start rationing health care. That Medicare will, so here's from the New York Times. Private insurers often require a cumbersome review process that frequently results in the denial or delay of essential treatments that are readily covered by traditional Medicare. This is called prior authorization. Now, under Trump, you're going to need prior authorization for a bunch of stuff.
Yes, you're going to have that. Hey, Nick, I scheduled you with Sasha and everything. We're talking just briefly, but what is your thoughts around one, gun control, but also I was having a conversation yesterday briefly about the network and other stuff with Kim, and she was wondering about how we're treating those that are maybe have some mental ailments or mental illness, and what we're not doing to stop these guns from happening. I know in the past you have said maybe we need to get rid of one of these amendments that existed.
Yeah, you got to get rid of the Second Amendment. And in other words, the thing is, over here in Europe, they don't have a Second Amendment. So what they did is they confiscated basically all the guns are gone, and so the murder rates and crime rates are like 1/6 of the United States.
1/10 in Spain. It's 1/10 where you.
1/10? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But the thing is, a lot of the countries have decided to become serious. Even Australia became serious. They don't have the gun mania that you do in the U.S. And so what happens? I'll tell you what really happens. You feel safe walking around, during the day, during the night, anywhere, because you know that some crazy person isn't going to pull out a gun and shoot you. I mean, that's just the realities of Europe. It doesn't exist in the U.S. In the U.S., no, you're not.
We're not going to get rid of the guns. We have about
Okay,
470 million guns.
Hey, Rick, it's not a good place to live, so I don't live there anymore.
Okay.
What am I supposed to tell you? I live in Barcelona. I'll go visit. I'll go work there. But why would anyone put themselves to turmoil? Look, Sasha doesn't live there. He lives in Canada. Canada doesn't have that problem. You two guys live there, but that's your choice. So if you want to live there, you gotta realize you live in a very dangerous country.
Yeah, I've only had a bullet go fly past me once.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just saying that the thing is, the U.S. is just frankly for normal people not a safe place to live. So why live there if you have a choice? And I have a choice, so I don't live there.
Yeah, but I mean, you said you only had one. Rick, you've only had one go past you once. I don't think I've ever had one go past me, but I do remember once, and this kind of comes to that point of going to a party, and there was a fight at the party, and everything along those lines. And this was decades ago. And after the party,
Sure.
Literally everybody that was probably at that time, because they're now mostly in their I want to say 50s, maybe a couple pushing around late 40s and everything like that. But almost all of the folks that at that time were probably college age wound up pulling out guns and everything. So you can imagine that you don't even know everybody's.
All right. Well, that's the USA. That's Haiti. That's places like that. A lot of Central America's like that. By the way, I did check out Central America. It's more dangerous than the U.S. Latin America is more dangerous. So why put yourself through that turmoil? The only thing I wish I did is move here sooner. That's all.
So about 10 to 20 million new guns are sold to Americans every year. We're about 2 years away from having an average of 2 guns for every adult American. 500 million guns for 250 million adult Americans. Of course, right. Only 1/3 of households are gun-owning households. Average gun-owning household has about 8 guns. And, they have them for different things, like for hunting, for home protection. Maybe for home protection, you got 2 or 3 throughout the house. So people who have guns tend to have a lot of guns. But
yeah, I mean, I used to have tons of them. I mean, at our lake place, we had 357s, we had 44s, we had several 22 semi-automatics. Hey, but listen, they're all dangerous. See, that's the problem. I've seen most people don't even know how to handle it, let alone realize how dangerous, and it's super dangerous when a mental person gets a hold of it. So the best thing to do is to do like they did in Spain. In U.S. airports, they don't have guns. I'm very safe walking around airports. The courts, they don't have guns. Okay, but unfortunately, if you want to live in the United States, you're going to just live in a very dangerous community. That's
right. We're never going to repeal the Second Amendment.
Well, then don't live there. I mean, the thing is, when I was in Prague, I was very impressed how clean and beautiful the city is, and the food is great. I mean, if somebody said U.S. or Prague, any city in the U.S. or Prague's better than any city, if not all cities in the United States. Seriously. And that's just the reality of it. The U.S. is a third world country. Why do these guys get real? You guys live in a third world country. Just say it.
Hold on a second. Speaking of third world countries, apparently J.D. Vance has jumped into another part of the conversation as well, because for years Democrats have responded, and my own personal Dad has a artwork around this notion and everything, but they argued this notion that thoughts and prayers are insufficient. They've often argued that
They're
Republicans
right.
use these as a substitute for bona fide action on things like gun controls and everything. But apparently, Vice President J.D. Vance and the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt on Thursday both accused Democrats of attacking the concept of prayer with their comments after school shootings in Minneapolis that killed 2 children. So apparently, he's using this as a political opportunity and everything like that. He said,
You're not serious about it. You're a joke. It's basically a joke. See, if you're serious about in the schools, you would do what they do in airports and courtrooms. You'd lock it down so everything is clean and pristine. Your kids are safe, but you're not serious about it. So as long as you're not serious about it, I'm not interested in even having this conversation, because the thing is, you guys aren't serious.
In third schools, because I do know
you guys are a joke. You're absolutely a joke.
And third schools,
and you live in a third world country. So, that's fine. I would do like I hope a lot of my clients do, make as much money as you can, because you can make more money in the U.S. than anywhere else, and then leave. Make like a tree and leave. And
the technology is long established. In 1987, I went to high school in Harlem for a while, and we went through a metal detector. Right. And that's it's simple. I mean, it's not great to live in a place where you have one entrance and exit. Yeah. Everything else is locked down.
Sure.
And you put people through there. Then also your school is hardened, where if a shooter's shooting from outside, you might have windows, but below the windows you put metal in the walls that will stop bullets. It costs some money, but there's things you can do.
At least you're safe. I mean, airports. I travel in a lot of airports. I mean, one of my biggest budget items is travel, so I go to a lot of airports. In other words, I was in LAX the other day. I was in JFK. And you know what? When I go through the airports, I know on the other side, I'm safe. All right. And I try not to go to courtrooms. When I do go to courtrooms, I know after go through security, I'm safe. When I'm in the United States, I'm on red alert. I know I'm in a third world country, and I got to be real careful where I go, when I go, and who I go with. So that's the U.S. In Europe, it is not the case. Anybody who's been to Europe, and you know that, Rick, when you're in London. Okay, I mean, the thing is, the odds of stuff happening are
I've walked through sketchy parts of London, and it still seems fine. In America, if you go to the mall, if you go out to dinner at a restaurant, you want to do mafia rules. You want situational awareness. If you're in the mob, like Tony Soprano made a huge mistake at the end of The Sopranos. He sat in the middle of a restaurant, didn't cover it. He was exposed.
Yeah, it's exposed, right.
What you do is you sit with your back against the wall, and you know where the exits are, and you have a plan if shit hits the fan.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
Well, speaking of having a plan and everything like that, Nick, and then I was wondering your thoughts around this, because we kind of alluded to it earlier, but apparently our friendly president is pulling the security and Secret Service protection from Kamala Harris. Like I said, Kamala is supposed to be here in, I believe it's middle October, to the DPAC, which I know you've been to before and everything like that. But definitely, I just wanted your thoughts about Secret Service being pulled, because this is a Trump effort to, I guess, maybe get back at her for running against him and everything. But what's your take on this notion of Secret Service?
I think Sasha has a comment, then we'll go look at the Secret Service.
I wanted to comment that, speaking about mafia rules, you know who always observed this rule was great American chess champion, world champion Robert Fischer. He was always sitting in a restaurant observing all rule. That was his rule number 1, number 2, and number 3. And therefore, there was never assassination's attempt on Robert Fischer, because he could see it all happening. And it was actually a very interesting story about described by Grandmaster Sosonka in one of his books, where the businessman, he was a German businessman but living in Holland, Ernst Pagel. He was owner of the businesses by the name Pagel Beton. That's what they were producing, the highest quality. And he asked Lev Albert to arrange for him meeting with Fisher. So Albert said, okay, he will do that. It will took some a while, and eventually, what happened that Fisher knew about this attempt, so he contacted Pagel directly and says, okay, I will have some time in 2 weeks. It will cost you $100,000, and I can spend with you 5 days. So he immediately replied, okay, I'm coming. So he came, gave him $100,000. And Fisher said, no, I can see you're a good guy. Okay, $20,000 is enough. So keep the rest. So he kept the rest. But he was trying to make pictures with him. And he even hired a detective who would, while they were walking, would take pictures of him and Fisher, but it didn't work out because Fisher was always looking at the size and he was mindful. We are talking about all the story happened in the year of 1981, and that was a time when they were very famous. If you remember Nick Lone Pine
Of
tournament.
course. Yeah, Lone Pine, California. Yeah.
Lone Pine, California, there were greatest Swiss tournaments at the time, very
Right.
popular. Of course, Fischer never played there, but Korchnoi played, and many other top grandmasters.
Yeah, Walter Brown. He was there
Oh,
also.
Walter Brown, yeah, he loved it.
Walter Brown played that cool.
So, anyways, this Arnfield Pagel spent 6 days in Pasadena with Robert Fischer. Later on, he came up with the stories that they played million blitz games, and once he beat Robert Fischer. That's hardly
Oh,
could be believed because Pagel himself was around 1,600 players. So how the 1,600 player could win even one game against Robert Fischer? It's I think it's a fantasy.
yeah, that would be kind of a miracle. Fisher would have to go to sleep. Yeah.
Let-
Now, in terms of the Secret Service, frankly, I don't know what the protocol is for that. Mark, who gets coverage and who does not?
I think if you're a president, you get it for life.
What?
If you're a president, you get it for life, I believe.
Okay.
But let's talk about the economics of it. So Kamala Harris has a book coming out on September 23rd. So she's going to do a book tour. So for each event that she does, I would think that security would cost at least $2,000 because you'd want to have a
Right.
healthy number of guards and to get competent ones, you're paying $150 an hour. So I mean, 2,000 is probably conservative.
Yeah, that's
However,
right.
However, I think her book deal is for something like $8 million, so she can afford it.
So you can afford it. Yeah, I would agree. What we have, Sasa?
So I want to speak about economics. All of you know the company Caterpillar, right?
Of course.
Okay. So today their stock is down almost 3.5%. Why? Because they announced that they are taking $1.5 billion charge next quarter of their earnings thanks to tariffs.
Right.
So now we can see one of the ways when it's not consumers, then suppliers would have to eat the tariffs. Welcome to the new brave world, our esteemed holders of Caterpillar stock. And most of the people do hold Caterpillar stocks because all the mutual funds and pension funds and
Right.
just name it, there is hardly any fund that's part of S&P 500 and Dow Jones and just name it. So there is hardly any American who doesn't hold directly or indirectly Caterpillar stock. Welcome to hell.
So the Democrats have been accused of leaning back too much, not being aggressive, and they're being made fun of because they did before they started their summer convention, they acknowledged that the land that they were holding the convention on was stolen from Native Americans. And James Carville, a strategist, said, you got to get tough. You got to quit with this bullshit. You got to attack on the issues. But, and also the Democrats' approval ratings has never been lower. Neither of the Republicans. But the deal is, like, the way this may play out is the Democrats kind of look crappy now, but a year from now, when tariffs wreck the economy, the Democrats may look okay. Maybe it may have been reasonable.
It's because they don't address the issues. They're too busy with their social media DEI issues not to address something basic like
maybe they'll learn.
They're too interested in internet for all rather than address affordable housing. So housing is the worst it's ever been for people to afford a home. And that's important to everybody, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. But no, they got to rent to DI. Okay. No, they got to rent to internet for all. So you know what happens? The voters run away from them, and the Democrats get their butts handed to them. Toby will disagree, even though he keeps losing.
Of course, because let me point out a few things. The people didn't care about having an actual plan. They didn't. The people didn't vote for an actual plan. They didn't. So when we sit here and say, well, the Democrats didn't address the issues, no, they did. They put out plans. They put out all this information about the different things that they wanted to do and so on and so forth. But people didn't listen to that. Why were the people mad at the Democrats? Because especially now, they're not putting up a fight. The difference between what happened with Trump and what happened with the Democrats is the fact that people thought, Trump's a fighter. They didn't care what he said. They didn't care what he offered. They didn't care what he was going to do. He sounded like a fighter. He was actually losing in the polls when Kamala Harris first got into the actual race. Her actual polls were higher than his. She was actually doing really well. The thing that switched, that caused the issue for everything to go downhill for the Democrats, wasn't anything that Donald Trump offered. Wasn't anything that the Democrats were talking about trans. It wasn't anything about that. The only thing that switched is that we had the assassination attempt that made Trump a martyr. And then everybody rallied behind Trump. Oh my gosh, he's a fighter. Look, he raised his arm in the air and all this bogus mess. And that is what switched the polls. It had nothing to do with anything you're talking about, Nick, and coming up with. And this is a funny thing. Nick, this is how dumb your argument is. I hate to use the word dumb, but it is. When you say, well, the Democrats weren't actually going for the issues. They're talking about internet for all. That is a freaking issue. That is what people want. That is what people ask for. That is what helps businesses and actual opportunity and so on and so forth. That is a legitimate thing. So you have proved my point when you're talking about, no, people didn't vote for anything but off emotion because it wasn't about the economy. Because Nick, take for example, right now, you're saying, the national debt, debt. Well, Trump added more to the debt, even in this. The inflation is high. The inflation actually just ticked up again. It's now at 2.9. It was at 2.7. Prices are too high. Well, prices are up. Percentage, 3 or 4% higher? No, actually, I think it was like 10 to 20% higher than it was last year. So when we're talking about all this stuff, all these bogus talking points that you want to put out there, Nick, they're all bogus because the truth is the only reason the Democrats lost was because of the assassination attempt. That's just a fact.
With his bloody ear and his fist in the air and yelled, fight, fight, fight. But here's what happens. Here's how Democrats get screwed on culture war issues. You have normal politics. We had normal politics in the U.S. for 200 years. And under the politics, like the policies get developed, by whichever party is in charge or with compromise. And like, for instance, with trans people, like trans people become like, they get louder and they say, we deserve a place to go to the bathroom or do sports. And people are like, well, all right, we have to figure out rules for this. And then they figure out some rules. And also for DEI, like people are like, we should give opportunities to people. Then Republicans look at this stuff. that was slowly built, and they go, look, the Democrats are going crazy. They want drag queens showing their dicks to school kids. Look, DEI, black idiots are flying airplanes. Oh my God. And they grab an issue out of the pot of normal politics and then start screaming about it, saying it's the Democrats' agenda to turn, socialism, communism, and trans people. And
there's a lot of
Wait,
smoking.
let me tell you. The way it goes, this has been going on. Hold on, Nick. This has been going on for a very, very long time. It has not been normal politics forever. It is actually what people use. It got codified into an actual strategy way back with Nixon and Reagan and all that with the Southern strategy. That was where, of course, still using the same things of the past, but what they tried to do was actually demonize and continue that Southern strategy to help out disenfranchised white people. That's what happened, and that's not hyperbole or anything. That is what the Southern strategy was. When the Dixiecrats and the whole parties flip-flopped after the civil rights, it was the Southern strategy that grabbed people that were disenfranchised and were upset about what was going on, and so they played on that white fear, white flight, white replacement theories, and all these things. That is the same thing that Trump amplified, and that is what you're talking about now with things that were never really political or politicized. They become politicized because it's easy to get people scared about something that they don't know about. Trans issues. You don't care about trans issues. You really don't care. You don't care about little girls. You don't care about women. The only thing you're doing is saying, hey, that man is going into that bathroom. Girl, you voted for Trump, but then on top of that, you don't really care about what's going on there, but you're scaring people to vote for you. That is what the cultural warfare is. That currently right now, those who use that Southern strategy, and it turns out to be the Republican Party that's utilizing that. That's why they grabbed the flag, the Confederate battle flag, waving it proud at those areas right now, because they play on that same Southern strategy. It's the white replacement theory dealing with immigration. It's the white replacement theory when they're talking about, blacks are coming in to move into your neighborhood. They can't go to your schools. We need to have school choice because those black people, it's all the same thing. And it's played just with a different tune, and people keep falling for it. And that's the sad reality. So yes, Rick, what you're talking about, the cultural war is what's being used, but it's been done for decades, and it's not just a new thing.
So on Twitter, every time Trump does something new and horrible, there are a bunch of tweets that show up that give the Fell For It Again award to MAGAs. Like it's just a bunch of drawings where a MAGA is wearing a thing. I fell for it again. And this strategy pays off again and again. Most people, Republican, Democrat, Independent, do not care very much about trans people one way or the frickin' other. The Republicans yell. The Democrats are just married to trans people and push drag queens into all aspects. No, it's a bullshit. I mean, it's an effective strategy.
During the election, Trump pulled pulled a lot of the money out of his ads around the economy because the economy was actually doing well and that wasn't really sticking. But what he did, where did he put his money? In exactly what Rick is talking about. And that's what got put out there, talking about trans issues, this and trans issue that. Democrats didn't say anything about the trans community. They weren't even advocating for the trans community. It was all Trump's political ads that were put out there. And talk about fall for it again. Check this out. You notice how all MAGA and all this whole stuff talk about how, Trump's tough on Russia. Trump is off on Putin. Oh, but Sasha, you're here. You know for a fact Trump is probably the weakest president ever towards Putin. Is that correct, Sasha?
Yes, by far.
And that's it.
So the Democrat strategy, well, I'm no authority on anything, but it should be whenever they bring up trans stuff, the Democrats should say, when they bring up trans stuff, check your wallet, because they're stealing your wallet while you're looking over at the trans stuff.
Honestly, they should do like I do, and same thing what Sasha does when Nick pulls.
Well, now that Jacoby's frozen, we can get another word in edgewise. Okay, here's the reality of the thing. It has nothing to do with what Jacoby said. First of all, Joe Biden was leading the inflation charge double digit during his administration because he's spending money like water.
Incorrect. Let me point this out to you. Inflation hit 9% under Trump, and that was in 2020. Then it dropped down to 6% when it was under Joe Biden. Then it kept continually dropping down. So what you're saying when you start out with a double-digit thing, that is incorrect. It peaked at 9% up under Donald Trump at the end when COVID had hit.
So failure number one is Joe Biden. Failure number two is your candidate, Kamala Harris. You have a candidate that's 10 times better. It's called Wes Moore. And actually, he's a black guy. He's the governor of Maryland. He would have won the election.
Wes Moore was not running in 2024. Wes Moore had just been in the governorship in Maryland. He just started in Maryland. What are you talking about?
Wes Moore, who's actually competent. If you ever listen to this guy, he knows
Wes
what
Moore
he's
might
doing.
run in 2028, but Nick, what you're talking about is nothing.
Kamala is clueless. So you had a choice, clueless Kamala or a crook. And you know what? And I talked to my Republican friends. They said, no, we're not going to go with clueless Kamala. She doesn't know anything. And look what the prior administration did. Double-digit inflation, spending money like water. And some allegations, he spent more and put us more in debt than Donald Trump, which, depending on how you look at it, may be true. So now your choice is to go for a crook or go for Kamala. Kamala was such a bad candidate, they went for the crook. Now, if you put up Wes Moore, he'd have probably been president of the United States. But we didn't have an election on the Democratic side. We had an anointment by the Democratic Party that Kamala would be.
Everything you've said is the idiotic talking point. Everything you just said is idiotic talking.
Didn't you guys any favor? He should have dropped out a long time ago.
Let me correct the record. And this is how poor your argument is again.
And
Nick, you're making another poor argument. Nick,
can you imagine?
Nick, you're making another poor argument. Here is the reality of the situation, Nick. You had a primary. Hold on, Nick. You had a primary in the Republican Party. Nick, you had a primary in the Republican Party, did you not? Yes, you had a primary in the Republican Party. You chose to vote for a guy who is racist, who has put out racist tweets, who actually is a crook, who is found liable of rape. You decided this. You could have voted for anybody else. You had a primary. So therefore, when you start talking about, well, Kamala Harris was a bad candidate, so we really only had one. No, you had a choice. You could have voted for someone else, but you decided not to. Then on top of that, when you talk about Kamala Harris, again, when we talk about Kamala Harris was actually leading the polls when she jumped into the actual race. She was actually leading the polls.
Yeah, I told you the polls were all false. I told you that.
Again, if you look at the polling, it switched at the assassination attempt.
I already told you that.
The polls switched at the assassination attempt.
She wasn't leading by enough.
I told you way before that.
So if it weren't for if the assassination attempt didn't happen, and she kept leading in the polls, she probably would have had another Hillary where she wins the popular vote, but not by enough.
Well,
if you want to look at a candidate who has a chance to win, it's not your Gavin Newsom, it's Wes Moore. I'm putting it out right now. It's
Choby, you're broken up.
She hadn't peaked at that point. If you look at the polls, she was rising the polls, and then Donald Trump.
So invested in your position, counselor.
All right. So, and here's where Biden screwed up. Biden hid in the White House for 3 years and didn't talk to Americans. He should have gotten out there. He should have explained why we had inflation. He never did that.
That's because he was like 80 years old, suffering from dementia. Probably.
Not dementia, no, but he
had cognitive impairments.
He's not but he's not.
He was not a smooth speaker.
All right, so let me get a word in. So what he should, if he were Trumpier, he would have made a bunch of speeches and public appearances where he blamed everything but him for inflation. And he would have sent every American household $1,000 check to deal, and which is wildly inflationary, but to deal with increased prices. But people love getting a check.
They love getting the check. I agree with that. They love getting checks.
Well, speaking of getting checks, what is our thoughts around this notion that apparently, because it was on one of my shows, it might have been on the online dinner party, that the realtor that I was talking to was talking about this $2,000 baby check that apparently Trump is putting out there, which is that it's supposed to, everybody's supposed to get $2,000, but they can't touch it till they retire or get to their 60s or something along those lines. But this is something that Trump has put out there that he wants to do. So, Nick, what's your thoughts?
Well, they have the new Trump retirement accounts. Have you heard of those? If you're a young little baby, you can.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking
right. About. Yeah, you can't touch it to your retirement. You have the Trump retirement accounts. So if you have kids, their government's going to drop some free money in for their retirement. So there are things that are going on that you should talk to your tax advisor about to improve your own individual situation. One is the Trump accounts.
Can you put
Wait a second. Hold on. So now, because we have so much money, we're gonna start federal retirement accounts.
No, they did, but see, it's not inflationary because it's not circulated. It's sitting in a retirement account.
It's for babies. It's not for retirement. Unless I'm mistaken,
so it's not inflationary
for a baby. When you have a baby, Trump sends you lets you set up $1,000 Trump account.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Trump is giving away tax dollars if somebody has a baby to put into a Trump account.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Listen to what I'm saying, Rick. Listen to what I'm saying.
Remember that.
Listen to my word.
Trump does is great.
Listen to my word.
That's great.
Listen to exactly what I'm saying.
Great.
Wait, listen exactly what I'm saying. So Trump is going to send you money.
Their retirement account.
Hold on. Send you money for having a baby to go into a Trump account.
Yeah.
So,
Sasha, am I saying something wrong here? You get what I'm saying? Yeah, you're a money guy, Sasha. Now, Sasha, if you give me money to have a baby to put into your account,
to invest, Toby, to put it to investments, not spend it on your stupid video games.
I'm going to put it into a Trump account. To put it in a Trump account.
So Trump says that you will have a lot of money when you turn 18 through the miracle of compounded interest. So
there we go.
So your money might double 3 times by the time you're 18 so if you're lucky, if you haven't invested well. So by the time you're 18, you might have $8,000 or $10,000. It costs $300,000 to raise a kid in America to age 18, not including college. So
who's getting that compound interest in a Trump account?
So you're given money. It's up to you to invest it, and
it goes into a retirement account. It's deferred comp. So the thing is, It's actually something that's good for America.
Okay.
Hopefully, it'll train people.
And then
to
even more
save
so, what's funny is,
money.
aren't we like 4 trillion? Didn't he just add 4 trillion to the national debt?
Like,
How are we going to pay for this?
You're like 35 trillion in debt, so you have to eliminate worthless government employees. And
So how are we going to pay for this?
And put it into hardcore
Sasha
investment
understands
with
free-
American companies. I like that idea. It's a great idea.
All that reminds me what Trump was talking about in the first couple of weeks of his presidency, maybe a month. He was proposing that, let's see, there is approaching $40 trillion debt owed to around 100 countries, of which crucial, of course, is China, Japan, a couple of others. So he proposed now that all this debt will be exchanged into special units that will be held untouched for next 99 years, and then it all will be paid in full with interest and everything else. How about that? Nobody would agree to that, but it's still very interesting proposal. Why not?
Yeah, it's called a
Hold on,
generation
Sasha.
shift.
If Trump suggests it, anybody in MAGA, and Nick will come on here saying it's a great idea.
It's not a good idea. It's a great idea. In other words, the thing is, what they need to do is to train people more how to save money, how to invest and save rather than spend money. And so what happens, unfortunately, our education system, K through 12, which is horrible, which is one reason charter schools are coming up, because charter schools, they're actually going to hopefully train people and give them a proper education as opposed to the public school system. And that school system needs to be destroyed because it's worthless anyway. And the thing is, in the charter schools, they'll actually train people to do things like invest and do the basics.
I think you missed it. Nick, here's the question.
In Florida, the schools have improved tremendously since they pushed charter schools in Florida.
Nick,
so this is
here's the question. Here's the question. How many public schools are there across the nation?
Lord knows, one too many.
Okay, so how many charter schools are across the nation?
I don't know. There should be more. That's all I can say.
Okay, so there should be more. Let's say there's a percentage wise. Let's say there's a percent. Do you think there are more public schools or charter schools?
Oh, there's probably more public schools right now.
like
Who deals with more students?
10 to 1.
But what are the best schools in America?
Hold on. Rick just gave you an answer. It's 10 to 1 over public to charter. So,
I'm thinking about quality. Hey, Rick, what are the best schools in America? Are they public schools or private schools?
Who can afford private schools?
Private schools in Los Angeles are $50,000 a year now.
So how are we going to send a kid who doesn't have that $50,000 to school if it's going to cost $50,000 to go to school? Nick, this is you. How are we going to send a kid to school if it costs $50,000 to go to school and they don't have $50,000?
Well, they may not be able to go. That's just
so. Then what?
Here we go. The best schools in America are they're all private schools. Isn't that amazing? Why isn't there any public schools up here? It's because they suck. So that's the reason why.
Nick, hold on. Nick, Nick, you're not listening.
Public school system.
Nick, who can afford? If you cannot afford school, you're saying leave the kid at home?
All I can say is you better work
here. Let me have the last couple seconds here. I have some statistics. The average American has $6,000 in credit card debt. 1/4 of all Americans have zero savings. So, Nick, you say, Pete, you want people to save. Well, the conditions in the U.S. are such that it's really hard to save because of prices and
don't hand me that. They're too busy going to Beyonce concerts and Taylor Swift concerts. And then they're cry me a river. It's too hard to save. when they're out buying Apple
Hold on,
phones. And
Nick,
going to Beyonce
Nick,
concert.
Rick is actually Rick was telling you
I'll see you
everything, and you
next
just cut him
week
off.
on the old edition.
Bye.
We gotta go. I gotta get my